I am Jeff Foxworthy, and welcome to Gamekeeper Podcast. If you want to learn more about farming for wildlife and habitat management, then, buddy, you are in the right place. Join the Gamekeeper crew direct from Mossy Oak Land Enhancement Studio as they discuss the latest wildlife and habitat management practices, news, and, of course, hunting. There's no telling what you'll learn, but I'm going to tell you, I bet it's interesting. Enjoy.
We're live in 3, 2, 1.
All right,
That's
we got
pretty good.
We got a guest counter.
Yeah,
Move over, Mac.
Move over,
tell
Mac.
you
Mac.
what.
Mason is in the house.
Mason, what a great Mason, how old are you? 11 years old. Mason is the son of our guest, Dr. Mark McConnell.
In the house.
So we're doing good here. So that speaks well of the education that's happening over in Octavia County.
Yeah,
That's right.
you got your son in tow. Y'all been looking at some stuff.
Yeah, what have y'all been doing?
Yeah.
We've been training newly hired quail forever biologist.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
You know, I've been looking forward to this because you just fit in with us. Like,
Yeah, he
as
does.
Taxi would say, peas and carrots.
Cornbread, dude.
And if I'd have said cornbread, he'd have said peas. So.
That's fair enough. Yeah.
But you know, I mean, we connected. You remember Lanny and I first ran into you, and you had a French poodle. Lanny, do you remember that?
Oh, it was a machine out in the field, too.
But
He
it was the
tells
best
it,
bird
he told it
dog.
last time I was at
It
it.
was like maroon,
It was
wasn't
an incredible
Yeah,
bird
incredible
dog.
Incredible
Retriever.
dog. Yeah.
Yeah.
A French poodle.
Yes.
Yes.
It's kind of one of those things, you just, goodness gracious, Bob.
Copper, who is incapable of love, was smitten by this dog.
She was a sharp dog. Yeah.
Yeah, she was.
She's still alive. She's 13 or 14 right now. She's
that's good to hear.
mostly blind and
Yeah.
largely deaf, but she's still kicking.
Oh, that's awesome.
She was a great retriever. I
Yeah, she
remember
was a
being
great
impressed.
retriever.
So. Well, today we're going to talk about quail. And guys, I've got something queued up. This is going to set the mood. So, Richie, if you would, please.
Oh, yeah.
Best sound in the world.
It's even cooler.
Maybe it's tied.
Yeah,
Don't get
there's
carried
one
away.
that gets a little.
It's
yeah.
way up there. I'll give it that now.
Yeah.
Way up
It's
there.
really interesting to see them do it. They
throw
throw their
so
head
much-
back.
Yeah, so much enthusiasm. in
Jokes,
that.
you
mean-
got some footage of a female doing her thing?
Wait, Richie, do we have any?
That's hard footage to get. Yeah.
Yep.
So I have been humbled by Mark McConnell. About a month ago, we were out at the place,
The place.
looking at our fescue eradication and how that's going. And I heard a quail.
Yeah.
And he told me that it was not a quail. It was I've always just thought it was a quail doing that first note that didn't finish. And it's actually another species of bird called a common yellow-throat.
Yellow-breasted chat.
Yellow-breasted chat.
chat.
And
I'm
they
gonna have
just
to
do
look
the.
that up.
They do that first note.
They just
there's,
go-
There's 3 notes in a bobwhite male song. We often don't hear that first initial.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right, because you have to be pretty close, whatever. But a chat will do that first kind of the hoy call, that first one, and that's all they do, and it sounds just like, even on a spectrogram when you look at recording, it looks very similar. Yeah. But a bobwhite, he's gonna finish that note.
I sure felt like a
here it
big
is.
dummy.
Yeah. Yellow-breasted chat.
Now I
right
know.
there.
You learn something every day.
So we invited you here to talk about quail, partridges, as we.
Pottages.
Pottages, as we
Pottages.
heard yesterday.
Come on, Bobby.
Pottages.
We love birds. And this whole, yesterday we did one that folks will hear with Mr. Tommy Paulk, and he kind of talked to us about the past and how it's been. And we'd like to look at you and talk about the present and the future. And before we kind of go down a bunch of different roads, I wanted to ask you, you're a big bird hunter yourself.
Try to be.
When you've got a dog that's pointing and you get your gun in hand and you're about to walk past that dog, are you looking at the ground, looking for the birds? Are you just not focused out in front and waiting on them to erupt? Or what's your style? What do you do?
You know, it's funny you ask that because I didn't always have a dog that would point really well. And as he's gotten better, I usually did not have the luxury to to look at the ground real specifically. I was just looking up. But as a quail biologist, I want to look at where they're at and what they're holding in. So I do a little bit of both. Right now, what I do now that my dog is a little bit more reliable, when I walk in, I take a good look at where I'm guessing where the bird might be. And then once I get where I think they're about to flush, I'm straight up. I'm just waiting to see the birds up. And then I'll go back after the flush, whether I connect with it or not, or if it gets up wild or not. And I'll go back to the spot where they were, and then I'll take a look, because I want to look at the vegetation. I want to look at where I thought they were hiding, and I want to always compare that to what I was guessing. So yeah, a lot of internal, at a time when you're supposed to be just thinking about the birds getting up and shooting a good safe shot. Yeah, I've got a lot of thoughts in my head. So I do a little bit of both. But if you don't have a good dog, you don't have that luxury.
That's right. I say that over half the time, maybe I could tell from watching the dog. You can just about tell and look at a dog. They'll be pointing, just asphyxiated with the scent and pointing, but they're just kind of looking into the air, and maybe even their eyes are moving a little bit still. When they see them, they are locked in. Sometimes the head is pointed down because they're right on top of them. But you watch that head just locked. He's telling right where they are.
Yeah, my dog's got a quiver to him when he's within a certain distance. He doesn't quiver if it's a long point. It depends on the scenting conditions a lot.
Yep.
And if it's going to be, they're scenting him off the variable or high wind, he doesn't have much quiver in him. But if he's pointing from me to you, Bobby, he starts to shake, and that's when I usually look at his quiver factor to figure out how close they are. Yeah,
The quiver factor.
What kind of dog are you hunting now?
I hunt with a poodle pointer. It's a German breed, not terribly popular in the Southeast. Looks a lot like a wire hair or a Dratar.
Poodle pointer. Have you ever heard of that, Lane?
I hadn't, but I'm going to look one up right now.
So that's one of the reasons I like Mark so much.
Yeah, he's secure in his own self.
That's a good-looking dog.
He's always going to do something a little different than everybody.
Hey, look at this dog, though. This thing is a good-looking dog.
Are you trying to say that you march a different beat, Dudley? Is that it?
Yeah, I do.
I
Look,
never knew that.
You want to
think we all
test
do.
somebody's security and their manhood. Try walking into a public Mississippi WMA draw hunt with a red female poodle, and you get a lot of looks and a lot of comments.
Where are you from, boy?
I've heard a lot of what the hell is that? Yeah.
Not touching that one.
Hey, this poodle pointer's a good-looking dog, man. I'll tell you that right now.
So, Mark, you grew up in Louisiana, if I understand right.
Yeah, North
how
Louisiana.
how did the quail just become a fascination for you?
Well, I worked on a farm up there. My uncle had a farm, and my great uncle, his uncle, kind of managed the business for him, and so I worked for them in high school. And I can remember my great uncle, who's 86 now, talking about, there used to be a covey over there, and I'd never seen a quail at that point. I didn't see my first quail till I was 21 years old. No joke, in Arkansas, northwest Arkansas.
I think I saw my last one when I was 21 years old.
So I just grew up with this kind of this mystique. There were these birds that were here, and I didn't know anything about it. And then when I went down to Baton Rouge for college, and I was working for a biologist there with the state agency, and he was telling me he had some papers in there and some books about quail, and I just started reading them and just became fascinated with. At the time in my career, I just wanted to light fires and get on a disc and cut trees. I just wanted to be managing, and this critter seemed to be something you could really make a difference with. So I just became my wife says I get obsessed about something, I don't let it go for a while, and with quail it just ended up being almost 20 years. So yeah, I just got obsessed with them, and then started getting on properties where they were at and would hear them and see them. And then I started realizing the trouble they were in, and I loved working in ag systems. I loved working in pine systems, and I got to do both. If you're a duck guy, you got to work in wetland systems mostly, and quail folks get to work in a lot of areas. So I just fell in love with them, and then realized that my grandfather, who died before I was met, had been a big quail hunter, and I had kind of this family connection to them that I didn't know about. And then, I don't know. They just captured me. Their ability to hang on. I know they're not doing well, but there's a lot of places in Mississippi you can find a quail where there's just a little bit of effort, and that's a good story to me. That's an American resilience story.
Yeah.
So, Lenny, ask your question you asked yesterday.
Well, are we ready for that?
Yeah, I think we.
Yeah, because
Y'all got me nervous about this question.
Well,
this is not on you. And
no, it's not.
It's a great question. It leads perfectly into what you just said. Actually, there's a few rounding spots in Mississippi, but
we're just looking at the MDWFP and at the quail seasons, and it's just astounding to us and to me in particular that, I've grown up in the woods of Mississippi my whole life. And I'm looking at the seasons on squirrels, and I see what the dates are, and I see the bag limits are 8.
Just like it was when you were a kid.
Yeah. And I walk out and right around my house, there's squirrels everywhere. And then I roll down to the quail, and it's about the same season, and the limit's 8. And I can't say that I probably have flushed a quail on land in Mississippi that I can't remember about, but it just seems a little off.
It's a great.
Why in the world Do they let people shoot them right now?
It's a great question. So there's two parts of that I maybe you were trying to get at. There's the duration of the season and as far into the winter as it goes.
And can I ask why we even have one at all? That's my question.
It's a good question. And then there's the bag limit, right? So every critter that we hunt has a different hunting has a different kind of impact on it. With deer hunters, we have to be really, and turkey hunters even, we have to be really, really, really regulatory because there's so many turkey hunters, right? The general consensus among most of the states that have not really shifted their season on quail is that there is so little quail harvest now in the modern landscape that it's almost negligible. But the counter to that is, well, why, like Toxie's saying, why even risk it? Well, the other part is quail populations, when they're okay, and if somebody's hunting them, they're finding enough bird, those quail populations are probably doing mediocre to okay. Harvest, generally, you got to work really hard to kill more than 20% of your fall quail population. That's work, right? That's work to kill 20% of your fall population. So that's usually not happening even on public areas oftentimes. So generally it's like, well, it's probably not enough quail hunters making an impact right now, especially not in Mississippi. In fact, the quail hunter numbers were so low over a decade ago, they stopped doing the quail hunter survey because the numbers just were tanking. So there's that. And then there's the argument that y'all wouldn't be amazed. Y'all probably know this. Whenever you take away hunter opportunity, it doesn't matter if it's justified or not. There is generally a public outcry.
Yeah.
And so my guess, and I'm not going to speak for MDWF&P, but my guess would be that they don't have any real pressure for it right now. Quail hunter numbers are so minimal in Mississippi that it's not really affecting it, and keep it out of the news. Right. Maybe.
Have you ever went out and had a good enough hunt to kill 8 birds on a public resource in Mississippi?
No. In fact, quail populations are really good about this, and there was some research on this out in Oklahoma years ago. It gets harder and harder to kill quail the lower the population gets, right? Yeah. So, and a quail, once you flush a covey a few times, like if you ever quail hunt an area birds are in, and I've got some places I go, I know there's so many times I can find that covey before they're not going to get up again, right? They don't flush every time. If they get hunted pretty hard, they stop flushing, they start running. And they're going to get to cover and get out of your way, and you're not going to get the chance to harvest them again. So there's some, I'm not going to call it self-regulatory there. It's really hard to hunt hard hunted quail populations, and it's really hard to hunt low density quail population, which is most of what we've got in Mississippi. So yes, I mean, I've hunted areas where I bump them 3 or 4 times. That covey, I know that covey's still there because no one else is shooting into it,
right?
And they're just much more wary. So yeah, you could argue maybe that there's a fair argument to be had that maybe the season should be changed. But right now, there's just, in the deep South, especially Mississippi, there's just not a whole lot of quail hunters that are partaking in that sport.
And I guess I was reading too, that daily bag limit counts unless you're on a shooting preserve, even if it's placed quail.
No, that's a good question. I don't really know about that. Okay. I don't know about the regs when it comes to a preserve. But I know the quail hunters I know in Mississippi, I can tell you what they do. If they get into 2 coveys, they'll shoot a bird per covey if they can. They don't chase singles, right? Because they want to leave that covey there for the next time. And they're usually, if they bump 2 coveys in a morning hunt, so 3-4 hours, they're more than satisfied, and they go home.
On the NDWP site, it says pen-raised quail may be released and hunted on private land during the statewide quail season. However, state bag limits must be observed. To harvest more released birds than bag limits dictate, or to hunt released birds outside of the statewide quail hunting season, a shooting preserve license or dog training permit is required.
Oh, yeah, so you just need a license for it. Okay.
Yeah, so maybe it is, they want the people that are having placed quail hunts to be able to harvest 8. Maybe that's what it is.
Right, because we know a few people that just turn them loose on their place and go hunt them. It's not for pay, it's just for sport. Right, and so they're regulated by the same old 8 number.
So that makes a little more sense.
Yeah, and I get calls every year from people say, hey, where can I find some birds? I got a buddy in town.
Yeah.
Some high school friends came in town. We just want to throw some birds out.
Wrong number. Prank call.
Yeah, you'd be amazed how many calls I get on campus from people that say, hey, what's the feed I'm supposed to put in my quail house? And I'm like, I'm not the person you call for that.
So
Wrong guy. Yeah.
Call the poultry science department.
See these people? When the clock strikes 5, it's not the end. It's just the beginning. They have to do these things they have to do those things. Enter the all-new LS Tractor MT2 and MT2E, a relentless force of innovation, redesigned with a new hood and cab built for comfort and visibility, with enhanced lifting capacity to get the job done, making these people the ones everyone else calls those people. Visit your local LS Tractor dealer today.
Moultrie has pioneered the game management category. Today, Moultrie is one of the best-selling brands of feeders and seeders in the world, and they continue to innovate with new technology that gamekeepers will rely on. Moultrie products are always field-tested and designed for hunters by hunters, combining forward-thinking innovation with time-tested practicality. Moultrie, first in feeders since 1979. All right, so guys, Moultrie is offering our listeners a 15% site-wide discount at MoultrieFeeders.com. Use code Mossy Oak with a capital M, Mossy Oak, at MoultrieFeeders.com and get that 15% discount.
This whole thing's sticking in my craw, so I'm not trying to be a stick in the mud about it, but it just seems to be that, man, when duck populations it's coming, we can get ready for it.
Yeah, that's right.
They don't have a problem with dropping that limit to what they think is best for the resource. And look around at turkeys; they're dropping them everywhere. I mean, states that were 4 are like 1 now in places.
Yeah,
they don't have a problem at all doing that and adjusting to what's best for the resource. It just seems like to me, if they're ever going to really bounce back, it's just going to make it harder. Because if they start to resurface, then they'll be right on top of it, more hunting pressure before they get to a fully sustenance level.
Yeah,
and so I just don't understand why people that love the bird wouldn't be willing to park it for a few years just to see if that can help the resurgence. We don't even know.
Well, I'll push back against that. Yeah, there's plenty of research that shows we're not overshooting quail. That's not the cause of the quail decline.
So if it starts to bounce back, how do you know it's going to not increase and stay that way if we start to have more and make it harder for them to get back?
That's a fair point. I think at the time, the way harvest frameworks work with state-wide, again, I don't set harvest frameworks for states. With turkeys, Mississippi turkeys are faring pretty well under our season framework. We're not dealing with the same issues a lot of states are dealing across most of the state. So that's why there's some science behind that. On the quail side, again, with turkeys and with duck hunters, there's a lot more people pursuing those critters in each state and throughout the range to where the ability for that to have an impact, like turkey hunting, you can obviously have an impact if you shoot too many turkeys. You can shoot too many anything, quail are included. Mm-hmm. But there's a lot more turkey hunters in Mississippi than there are quail hunters, and it's really just we don't have any evidence right now to suggest that it's causing any of the issue or limiting any of the success we're having on properties where we're managing for them. Toxie, to your point, I think maybe if I could summarize it is, why not just err on the side of caution? Is that a fair way to think about it?
Yeah. I mean, it's you can't argue that it wouldn't be better for the quail to have zero pressure for some period of time. There's no way. So that's all I'm getting at. Because I'm purely almost obnoxiously about the resource, even if hunters have to take one on the chin a little bit. I mean, I just the way I believe, and so I actually can brag about being old enough to remember when they were just everywhere. And that's what I want again. Oh, I'm not satisfied with, we can find a few still. Yeah, you can go out and kill one. It's okay. Yeah, you can do that probably. I mean, that's just, to me, it's almost degrading to say that to something so grand that used to be so plentiful. I want abundance. If we have a place, I want to have, abundance of ducks and deer, squirrels, everything, red birds, whatever it is, in some kind of balance. And I've got a couple places we have some, especially where we really burn a lot, which proves that point. But, man, I wouldn't shoot one for all the tea in China. Because even not shooting them, they seem to disappear.
So wouldn't it send Mark, I'm looking at you, would it not send a good message to the hunters if that bag limit went from 8 to 4 and just said, hey, we're worried about these. It would send a message that we're worried about these birds. Y'all be careful with them out there.
Yeah. In his defense, since we're kind of arguing here, I've been pretty hardcore on public land in the fall and winter the last 4 or 5 years. I have not one time seen a quail hunter parked on the side of the road.
Oh yeah,
not one time.
I'm not arguing,
and that's
that
where the best
habitat.
That's where the best habitat is for them.
So
private is, it's a lot of timber companies that don't even let you burn, big ag, so.
So I let me put it this way, because I got to make sure, since I have no power over Harvest Frameworks in Mississippi. I don't want to leave that impression, but I will say this. I'm not going to necessarily disagree with anything anyone's saying, because sure, there's some biologically, there are some ways that at least it would appear that you're sending the message to hunters. I don't know, of all the people I know that quail hunt in Mississippi, I don't know anyone even approaching the bag limit. I think quail hunter, not all of them, some of them probably chase every single, and I'm sure there's a few people that may fill that bag. I don't know them, and that doesn't mean they don't exist. What you guys have probably seen, I'm sure you've seen in many states, is when you go to make a harvest framework change of any critter, even if that framework change is not all that controversial biologically, or it's justifiable biologically, there is a tremendous amount of public outcry.
Oh, yeah. So
harvest frameworks by state agencies, because it's a public trust, they are a combination of biology and sociology, really. They're trying to maintain hunter enthusiasm, maintain hunter satisfaction, somehow balance that with what's best for the critter. And we've seen a ton of examples in our state and many other states where sometimes that pendulum swings one way more than the other, right? Mm-hmm. Right, wrong, or indifferent. Yeah. I'm not here to make that determination. But I would have no problem if they were to reduce the bag, whatever. I'm never killing 4 quail anywhere I go anyway, so it's fine. But based on what I know about the quail numbers in most of the Deep South and the quail hunter numbers in the Deep South, I would be, because I've been asked this before, if we stopped hunting quail, would their population shift? And in the Deep South, I would say no. I have no evidence to suggest that quail hunters are having really any of an impact, because where the people are shooting the most quail is probably where you've got really, really intensive, purely quail-focused management, right? And, there's some research out of Georgia. My friend James Martin's published the only real research on harvest management with quail that's been done in a while. And it's really fascinating because, there's a point. We used to tell people back in the 70s, there were people that said, you could shoot, there was a guy, I can't remember what state it was like, you could shoot 70% of your fall population. And we're like, whoa, my goodness, that's, how could you even get close to that? Tall Timbers Research Station, where I did my dissertation, they've in the Red Hills, plenty of quail. Even that place that gets hunted tremendously. The years I studied, 42 years of their data, I never saw their harvest rate go more than 10% of the fall population. And they're hunting hard.
10%. So let's think about that. So you're saying if there was 1,000 quail on that area, they were killing about 100
in a season.
Yeah.
And I was looking at the 100 days too, to y'all's point. I mean, I added it up on public land. The ones that reported, I mean, you're talking about statewide, 300 days of hunting. And that's just man days. So across the state, that is pretty
That's
low.
like Mark and like 4 other people.
Right. Yeah.
We're just asking, Mark.
No, these are great questions.
Yeah, it's just interesting.
We just want your opinion.
No, I agree. And I'm happy to give it. And I totally understand Toxie's point, because we've had this issue with the turkeys in recent history about moving the season back and all that stuff and what it would do. And there was a fair contingent of turkey hunters that really were vocal that they wanted that. Mm-hmm. There was a fair amount that didn't seem as enthusiastic, and we've seen this across multiple states. And it's a challenging harvest frameworks are where politics enters biology of managing a public resource, and it can get challenging because hunter satisfaction, whether that's the right approach or the wrong approach, hunter satisfaction is important.
Very important.
Right? These license sales are important, and we want to keep hunters engaged. So yeah, I'm not necessarily disagreeing with anything y'all said. I'm just trying to give you what my understanding as somebody who doesn't make that decision, what my understanding of that non-change is based on.
We appreciate the perspective for sure.
What do you think, Mac?
Yeah.
I mean, if you can't hunt them, then I can see the argument if you can't go hunt them, then people lose interest in them, and if you take the season away, then people just forget about it.
And there's also a big preserve side, a big place hunt side of this in the state too. So I mean, if the word gets out that Mississippi is closed as quail season, then it would probably have an effect on the commerce of some of those place hunts too.
Well,
I don't want to keep this going on, but I have listened with an open mind to everybody's comments, including his. I respect them all, and I still have not changed my opinion. Yeah. That's what makes the world go around. That's why I err.
That's why I didn't shoot a turkey this year. How many did you shoot?
You would have shot a turkey.
I do want to try to kill a quail.
So when
I
the
think that'd be
population
awesome.
of where you're hunting continues to grow and continues to grow more than the year, not just stable with the year before, but more than the year before, that's a different equation. Then you can barely even find one, Dudley.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dudley's more about calling.
Yeah.
No,
Dudley was trying to harvest a turkey. It just didn't work out.
I think I went 4 or 5 mornings.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, Dudley, why don't you ask Mark a question?
I thought Mac was going to ask them.
You
I
put him
got
on the
everybody
spot.
stirred
Okay,
up
we'll-
now.
we'll
No,
come
no,
back to that.
I love that conversation. I'll ask a question.
Absolutely.
Well, I'll just add
So-
one more thing before we
Yeah.
move off. Toxie, to your point, that's a conversation we need to keep having
Yeah.
with not just quail, but with lots of things.
Everything.
Yeah.
And on the duck side, I'm probably more optimistic on the duck situation than maybe some people are, because I've watched those populations fluctuate over time. And yeah, there's a lot of things going on in the prairies that are challenging and maybe out of our control. And the mallard number decline we're seeing right now, we're still within the 20-year average, for the most part, on a lot of species with a few exceptions.
Right.
But again, that's one where they have the most robust approach to adjusting seasons. The federal, what they'll give you in terms of days and bag limits, it's more robust than any other critter we have, and it still splits waterfowl hunters 50-50 on whether it works or not. So it's a tough topic.
Well, they're two completely different equations. Like we were talking about the quail, then we were talking about the duck situation a week ago, and we've been getting into all these critters, which I love getting out there to people. But, you have a very complex system to manage with ducks. They don't even migrate the same way. They're starting to shift in like east-west or so forth. I mean, and, we got to depend on Canada or Minnesota or Wisconsin, or we don't have them, But with quail, with turkeys, and with deer, pretty much you and your neighbors control everything. So it's completely different.
One of the biggest things about the parallel I'm comparing is it still splits. Right, there's rarely consensus. in harvest frameworks.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And, and I was just saying, it would be a lot harder to hit the mark on ducks perfectly because there's so many more variables.
Sure.
And I mean, I hear them talking about maybe, when it's just whispers, maybe, cutting back here and there, adjusting to what's happening in the population, but they're like 2 years out from making those kind of decisions. Just like, it's the federal government, so it takes a long time. It's like the car companies, they see something on the marketplace and they want to, maybe 3 years before that hits the marketplace,
Yeah.
It's interesting how it takes that long, 2 years to change something like that.
So,
Well, with ducks, it's a little more complicated. So they've got the May pond counts, and then they've got their actual flights they do in the prairie states, and so you've got a couple things going there. It's kind of like turkeys, right? We often see that when we have a really good hatch, like we had 2 years ago, had a lot of really good hatch, one of the best on record, and 2 years later, bam, we had about a record season because we had a lot of two-year-olds entering the population, right? So there's some of that. With ducks, the conditions that we're surveying in May, that's going to affect production that year. But sometimes it's not just that, and it takes a little time to understand how that's manifesting in the population. And then by the time hunters we're at a disadvantage in Mississippi because, like Toxie said, we're not, with the climate and everything going on and changing in agricultural practices, we're not always getting as many birds as we got when I was a
we
kid.
had a 2 or 3 week season last year down here.
If
I mean,
that.
you could have gone out and decided you're going to shoot a limit every day. You could, and you couldn't. That's my point. They never got here, so the places that they really are thick is where the harvest can make a difference or not. We couldn't have affected it either way. It was such a slim amount, made it down. We did have, at least at the very end and right after the season with some cold weather, we did have some show up. So I have some faith they'll still make it down here.
Yeah.
But I guess my my temperature rising about the quail is kind of, I thought of a good analogy. If you ever met someone and they're getting to where there's not many anymore, but someone that lived through the depression of the 30s, late 20s and 30s, there's not many left. But y'all are probably new people. And they are scared to death with like borrowed money or investments or anything to do financially. Just freak out about it. I remember Diane's grandmother when we had the little downturn in
07,
06,
08.
08.
she was scared to death, and it triggered that anxiety from having lived through it. And I lived through the quail. I loved them so much. We don't even talk about it till we get these podcasts there. I lived out there. Y'all heard me talking yesterday. I love that bird. I mean, there weren't any turkeys here. I heard Daddy talking about it. That was as a child, that was more of a fixation of a wild game animal than anything for me. And we kept on losing them and losing them and losing them. And everybody just stood around going, what's going on? I don't know. Biologists, what's going on? I don't know. Why are they done? I don't know. And they just kept going. And guess what? Nobody could do anything about it. Mm-hmm. And so that's the same phobia I get when this stuff comes up about turkeys.
Yeah.
Or ducks.
Me too.
And so
because I heard
that's
the stories,
why I have so little patience. And I'm not saying if we'd have quit quail hunting, it would have changed anything either. Because clearly the big changes. Yeah, the reproduction, the habitat, the trends in nature are what dominate regardless. Mm-hmm. But that's a good analogy so you know why I'm so, because I don't want to wake up. I'm getting old, and I wish to be able to live those days again when we just had them. You could hear them everywhere. You see them when you're fishing. They run across the road. They're in your yard at your camp, and they're gone. Mm-hmm. And I miss them so bad. I just don't want to ever see that happen again because we're so greedy. We want to keep shooting stuff. That's what that's what gets me. And so I'm not going to change.
Yeah. My analogy is exactly what you said, but about turkeys. I saw a lot of them growing up. They were everywhere. They were easier to hunt. But we kind of went by these unofficial rules at the same time. And now, you get on social media, you see people shooting doubles and triples all the time and holding them up for pictures. And
when all the bragging rights. Oh, did you get your limit this year?
Did
you get your limit? And the peer pressure to shoot more.
It's kind of made me go the other direction.
That's absolutely.
So I got this new place, and first day I pulled up, I saw 2 strutters right behind the gate, and I had no interest in even hunting them. Actually, it was 3.
That happens a lot. That happens a lot when you become a landowner.
I went there a lot and had my gear in the truck, but I chose to go do some work instead.
Right.
You see that a lot when people start buying up land and owning land. It changes your perspective.
Yeah.
So I never lived through the heyday of the quail, so I wish I had, and I didn't. So,
but I took it for granted, so I feel guilty too.
Well, we all did. I mean, not we, I wouldn't, but everybody did.
Everybody. My dad talks about it.
But one of the things to think about, Toxie, just to put some of that in perspective, the biologists are always going to be a little behind on, back then especially, because the techniques for monitoring quail, just that we didn't know how to monitor them. We were going a lot off what hunters were telling us, and we didn't start officially counting them at a national scale till 1966. Now, some states were doing some things.
Well, look, I give it credit because, look, they have to be so statistically accurate, valid, proven, and guess what? They're having to take responsibility for making those recommendations. So I totally get that part of it.
But I don't think we'll experience with game species that that pattern that you described, because with turkeys especially, because there's some challenges with turkeys. Counting turkeys isn't easy, and I'm sure y'all have had plenty of people on the podcast talk about that. They're a tough thing to count, right? So we don't have good data on, like we do for quail or for other species, on counting them. We have other metrics of counting them. With quail, there's the states that are still engaged are staying pretty strong on it. They're keeping up with it, and I can tell you this, and same thing goes with turkeys. Every property I know or work with or have been on, and I can say this almost unequivocally for turkeys, and pretty much for quail. If they want them and they're doing what needs to be done, they've got them. Now on quail, it's a little bit harder because sometimes the landscape's just so devoid of them, it takes a while. But with very few exceptions, almost every property I know where people want quail and are doing what they need to do to get quail, they've got quail. Now they're never going to have quail like they had in the 1950s. We have to change everybody's future. Y'all mentioned the future. We've got to change, in my opinion, what is expected and realistic in the quail world. The landscape has changed dramatically so much since that age. We'll just, for the sake of it, call the 50s the heyday of Mississippi. Yeah. That's what I was told by a lot of old guys. That in the 50s, it was 60s too. It was just right before the Green Revolution, right before the Russian wheat crisis, where Secretary of Ag said, get bigger, get out, fence row to fence row, right before all that changed, right? I was told that was some crazy quail hunting days in Mississippi. It was a destination quail hunting state, but it didn't have to be because everybody had them, right? Those numbers are not going to come back. The landscape will not support that. What we can do is people who have land who want quail, if they want them and they're willing to do it, I have rarely seen the case where they can't have them. and even have enough to hunt. But even hunting quail's got to change, because when you're here, I don't know, the guy y'all had probably talked about going out anywhere and finding 8 to 10 coveys, right? That's the number I always hear, right? That also is not going to be very common in the average deep south. Now, there's places in the Red Hills where you could, I hunted at a plantation this last winter, and we moved 50-something coveys in 6 hours.
Wow.
Now, that is a place that is only managed 100% for nothing but quail in a landscape that is predominantly managed for quail. That's different. But in Mississippi, there's properties where people are trying, have big enough acreage, or like you mentioned, neighbors working together, co-op, and that whole model, man, that works.
Yeah.
That's the point about quail I was making a minute ago too. And you could say they're never going to come back. Or so you're looking at a broad scope of the entire state or the entire country. But you just pointed out there are places where they're very abundant. And this goes to the greater point about our whole gamekeeper movement. And, this growing and growing every day. It's the state and the government, they cannot make you shoot them. They can tell you not to shoot them, or there's a limit to what you shoot, but they can't make us. So it's every single, we're trying to educate and motivate and empower, actually put the tools in their hands. Every single person, every block of land has somebody responsible for it. May just be people working for the government, maybe someone leasing a hunting club, maybe somebody owns a little land behind their house, but someone can take responsibility for just about everywhere. Sure. That's the Army that can make a difference. And so and that's what we want to get more into, is you telling us, what can we do if we care? Because you don't have to have a real big place to sustain some quail. You really don't. Now, you might have to have a pretty good sized place to go shoot many of them. Yeah. But, we can make a difference person by person. And that's what I think people would love to know. If I want to make a difference, it's going to be long term if you do. But what are some of those things they could take steps to do about it on their place? They don't have to rely on Canada to come through for them. They can do it themselves.
Good point.
Lenny, I had to tell you, hunting with you, you've got your phone in your pocket. You're constantly checking onX.
Yep. Very valuable key features all in those things. It really is. From the compass mode to recent imagery, it really helps you understand where you are spatially, where you're headed, where a turkey is, where he was. It's a heck of a tool to use in the spring woods.
I didn't realize that they're updating these maps every couple of weeks.
Yeah, I'd have never known about that clear cut that you were hunting if I didn't have that recent imagery.
Well, and you could share some waypoints with me.
I could share some points with you. You're exactly right.
It has that capability.
It does have that sharing capability, which is great. You're wanting to show me where your goblin turkeys are.
Oh, man. onX, it's a great app.
It's a great app.
So guys can go to onxmaps.com/hunt and use code Mossy Oak to get 20% off.
There you go.
I'm a big fan of onX.
I am too.
Everybody's passionate about quail, even though in our experience with quail now it's typically going to a place where they liberate a few birds. And that's how we do it.
I feel good about it because I feel like you can enjoy it. You can see the dogs work and all that stuff. It's still a beautiful bird, and you took the pressure off. It's kind of like the oyster guys, in that oyster reef project, we helped fund some stuff, and they were like, whatever you do is pass the word, eat the farmed oysters, lay off the natural and native ones, because of the pressure it's putting on the whole, marine life and all.
So I want to ask you, you're a bird hunter yourself. What is it about the sport, about the birds, that makes I'm going to say an upland hunter, because it's the same way with grouse and pheasants. But what is it about the sport that's just makes people so passionate and makes them enjoy it so much?
Well, I don't want to speak for the entire culture, but for me, it was the landscapes, like where you're hunting, right? And the dogs. My God.
$1,000,000%. And honestly, over just about, you can help me with this, I can't remember, over every kind of pointing bird type thing, they would hold to a point better than anything and then explode like that. I know there's a lot of, grouse, chucker, pheasant, all these different things, but I feel like the bobwhite quail, it just added to everything else on top of it, that they would just hold so well Well,
the third thing that I was going to mention is the flush. So you think about like, all right, let's be honest. What is really driving you to go turkey hunting? What is it?
The gobble.
The gobble.
Yes.
It's that gobble.
Yes.
Now that gobble is something that erupts.
Great analogy.
It erupts out of the woods. There's other things singing. And there's
Not like that
but
one.
there's nothing. There's nothing doing that.
There's nothing flusters me today. Just thinking about it, it messed me up so much as a kid. Thinking about it gives me a little anxiety today.
So the flush of a covey, I can remember where I was the first covey I ever flushed. I can remember how exciting it was. I can remember how scary it was because you didn't know it was coming. And I think we're all chasing that adrenaline rush.
Yeah, I would agree.
And same thing when a big buck walks in. Not that you don't get excited when a doe walks in, but a big buck will get.
I get
I
excited.
try
when
to
a
not
dog
make
walks
deer
in.
examples, but it matters. Same thing, like if a gadwall hen comes in, you're excited.
Right.
If a mallard drake comes in and the sun shines on his head, it's a different experience. So I think it's the landscapes, these beautiful, even. Not all quail habitat is pretty. I tell people all the time.
Yeah.
That's what hurts us with landowners is they want it to look like this beautiful grass savanna, but that ain't quail habitat in a lot of Mississippi, right? You got to have some ugly stuff in there. There's a lot of blackberries and a lot of things you don't want to walk through. The flush and the dog. There's the main reason I started upland bird hunting. Well, one, studying them, I had to, and I wanted to, but I wanted the dog work, that relationship with my dog, that dog connecting with me and working with me to achieve a common goal, having my son walk in or my girls walk in over my dog on point, literally some of the happiest emotional moments of my life. So
memories you don't forget.
That's right.
Oh my God.
And I didn't grow up bird hunting with my dad didn't bird hunt. He didn't quail. No one in my family quail hunted.
You need to take that.
No. It's a spam call. Yeah, sorry. I didn't start bird hunting until I started woodcock hunting before I started quail hunting. And so I was in my late 20s, early
Woodcock.
30s.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's a movie. Woodcock.
Okay.
So
we've run into them.
about all I got was a few jumps when I was a kid. My dad bought some land, and there were a few quail left on it. And I just have these memories in my mind of jumping these few coveys, and it was kind of a picturesque landscape. So what would be, to people that have never really done this, we see these videos and stuff on social media of these really widely spaced pines, and I see a lot of it is really flat and it looks very similar. But so where would that covey be sitting? So just describe like a scene if you were going to hunt something that you dream up.
Quality quail
What would it
habitat.
look like?
If I was going to design like the perfect setup or what's more realistic?
Maybe a little bit of both. I mean, we asked Mr. Tommy this yesterday when we were recording with him, and I was just wondering if you kind of had a scene that.
Yeah, well, I mean, so I do a lot of quail.
What looks birdie?
Yeah. Well, so once I've been very fortunate in my career to follow quail around that were radio tagged, during doing research. So you learn a lot about where quail want to be by doing that. And then of course, if you know what they need, that helps you too. So, I mean, I hunt on some areas I hunt in Mississippi, they're open canopy pine systems, but I'm looking for plant diversity on the ground and structure, right? I'm looking for, in the wintertime, I love blackberry thickets, Chickasaw plum thickets, dogwood thickets, any kind of shrubby cover that'll kind of help them hide away from predators, and grass, but not just grass. Grass kind of got overplayed in the quail world, and we told people to plant too much grass, and now we're fighting grass on a lot of properties I work with, and a lot of forbs that produce seeds. So when I look out, there's a color to quail, winter quail habitat, right? It's a little bit of yellow from the grass and the brown, but there's some dark brown in there, and those dark brown are those seed producing forbs. So that kind of mix of yellow and brown throughout there with some shrubby stuff. That's where I tend to find birds. Okay. And that's what the literature would tell us birds be. They don't really care about the trees, right? Now they'll eat pine seeds like crazy, especially on a good mast year. But, a quail is less concerned about what's above on the canopy than what's on the ground, right? Those pine trees are great and they help carry the fire, which is they desperately need. They're called the firebird. That's the thing. And but then if I'm not in a pine system, I mean, goodness gracious, Mississippi's got a lot of just what I call just kind of old field stuff that just somebody lights a fire on every few years and it grows up in, thicket of brambles here and there. And, you'll find birds, in that too. So, but that changes. What's interesting about quail is they have a huge range. The type of species and what they look like in a different state. Like I was hunting up in the Panhandle of Oklahoma a few years ago. The species are totally different, but the structure is almost identical, right? That same kind of yellow-brown mix.
Okay.
Hard shrubby stuff, forb stuff that's producing seeds, and some grass. Some grass, not too much grass. I can't emphasize that enough. And I was with a guy who's did research up there, and I was asking him, every plant up there, because I don't know any Oklahoma plants, and structurally they look just like good quail habitat for the most part in Mississippi, but the species were different. So it's going to change how you look. Now, if you go out to the Red Hills, a lot of those systems, the pine trees are much more dominant because it's huge longleaf systems. But if you get down to a quail's point of view, it looks structurally, it looks a lot the same. So that kind of mix, diversity in vegetation. When you get to a place that doesn't have a lot of plant diversity, it's hard to find quail there.
So let me add this to where you are right now. So in doing a little research for this, I'm sure we've all heard of a quail hunter, bird hunter, writer named Gene Hill. Mm-hmm. And he had a quote that
I'm liking these quotes.
I thought it really fit this. And so he says, "I felt strange and somewhat rude as I walked in behind the point and honor. I was a man walking into what was so much like a famous painting that I almost had to laugh. But if you're lucky, and that's what a lot of quail hunting is, a series of lovely paintings that we walk into and out of all day long."
Oh, that's beautiful.
I thought that really kind of, because you just think about, when I remember quail hunting, it's remembering those dogs locked in and pointed and walking up beside them, behind them. It's so much of what it is.
I've gotten to the point now. I never turkey hunted just a whole lot, and then I do some of that, and then I deer hunted a little bit, and then duck hunted a fair amount. Was most of what I did. Since I got a bird dog, woodcock and quail, I can't remember. I mean, I duck hunted twice this year, maybe, and that was that week that we finally got some rain and some weather. Maybe just 2 mornings. That was it the whole season, maybe 3. But absolutely, the following. There's a great, since we're doing quotes, my favorite book and favorite movie is Lonesome Dove. And if you've
ditto,
read,
by the way, guess what my dog's name is?
Gus.
Yes,
100%.
Exactly. My favorite, one of my top.
Nate, was that the trivia question?
You know what? I don't know. And Toxie, you know what my dog's name is?
What's that?
Woodrow. F. Call.
Man.
You didn't want to call him Captain?
I thought about it, but when I was doing his papers, I was like, you know what? I'm just do the whole thing. I think it is Captain, but I call it's Captain Woodrow F. Call.
Some of my 2 favorite movies still, with everything going on today, or that, which actually wasn't a movie, it was a miniseries. And guess what my new dog name is? My other favorite movie. They know. So
I'll give you a hint. Tom Hanks.
Forrest.
Oh, Forrest.
Forrest. I call him Forrest without a T.
Forrest.
Yep. So we've got
Forrest,
Gus.
that's right.
We've got Gus, and we've got Forrest.
My favorite movie
Woodrow.
would be Chopper. I'm not going to finish that.
So there's a line in there in the movie. I can't remember how it is in the book because there's some small deviations. But when they're taking the cattle to Montana, and Gus and P.I. go looking for something, I can't remember, right before they get attacked by the Native Americans, they're sitting there looking at a herd of buffalo or something, and Gus goes, "There's nothing like riding a good horse a fine horse through new country." Mm-hmm. And I would paraphrase that and say there's nothing like walking behind a fine dog through new country. Uh-huh. I will go to a state that I've never been in without any real understanding of where the quail might be, and I could walk all day with my dog, and I honestly don't care if I find a covey of quail. Watching that dog, experiencing that new country, if it looks right, and luckily places I've been, I can do it all day long.
Bobby's green down there looking at you. I can see it in his eyes.
Yeah,
he could. Me too. But
oh yeah,
it's special.
It is
definitely
very
a relationship.
Yeah, you think about it, that's a little bit different than how we in the South, chase quail. That's like you just everything. Upland bird. I've never done it, but the flushing pheasant with your dog thing, Mr. Gibson goes and does it all the time and all. seems like that would be so much fun. You're covering so much ground too.
Yeah, pheasant getting up's pretty damn exciting too. I mean, that's an eruption, and he's cussing you the whole time he's getting out of the air.
Yeah. Wow.
I thought he was going to talk about my favorite line from the movie. I hate rude behavior to man.
I won't tolerate it.
Won't tolerate it. Yep, that was always my favorite one.
So let me, I've got to ask you, I mean, they're all over the place, and we're not condemning them, but the liberated bird hunting places. As a biologist, somebody that studies the quail, what do you think about them?
Well, it's been kind of a weird relationship I've had with them. It's I won't say it's love-hate because I don't love them. Do I wish they never started? Probably. But they're a part of the culture now, whether we like it or not, the bird hunting culture. There's, Toxie mentioned earlier, maybe they're taking some pressure off some birds. Maybe it could be.
I would have to think they are.
They probably are.
Well, I'm just saying, if you had a choice,
sure.
and you want to go shoot some birds, that would.
But
take
the
pressure off.
downside,
I'm not necessarily saying the others. Though.
My PhD advisor James Martin gave a great analogy. We were on the phone one day, and he said something about it's like fast food versus growing your own garden. And if he listens to this, I'm sorry if I'm misparaphrasing him, but it was an interesting analogy, right? Like if you just need food, you can just go to a fast food chain and get it.
Right.
But if you grow your own food, how much more fulfilling and rewarding is it to do it? But most people don't because it's time consuming. It's not easy. And if you just want to go out and shoot some birds and get behind a dog, there's plenty of places. Like you said, they're everywhere. There's plenty of places to go do that.
Yeah.
So I didn't really, I had been on one liberated hunt in Katy, Texas one time when I worked on a farm in Louisiana, and my boss who owned the farm took us over there, my uncle. And I'd never done it before, and it was pretty ridiculous. I mean, it was, the birds didn't want to fly. And I was like, okay, this is everything I've heard it is, whatever. A lot of people do it differently. Some people make it, very few people dizzy them up anymore that I'm aware of. A lot of people just let them go. Hopefully they're managing the place semi-well, and, the birds are going to fly or better or worse, depending on how good condition the birds are, how healthy they are. So I did it then, and I didn't really think about it because I really wasn't into quail back then. I didn't do it again till, 5-6 years ago. And I can remember after I was like, man, this is weird. I had a blast. I couldn't deny it was fun.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But I felt guilty. Mm-hmm. And then called a buddy of mine and I said, man, help me feel better about this. Cause he's done it here and there, but doesn't really want to do it. And he said, man, you're in Mississippi. How else are you going to get your kids excited about upland bird hunting if you didn't have access to a preserve?
Yeah.
And I was like, I hate that I have to admit that. But I do, because Mason's too, well, he's asleep over there on the couch. He's too young to follow me through the woodcock woods right now. He could, but it'd be tough on him.
Yeah.
He's probably getting to where he can now, but he's been too young for me to put him through too much of that abuse. I don't want him to hate the sport. So I don't like him. I understand, however, that a lot of people, I had a board member of Quail Forever tell me this. He goes, everyone's path to the uplands is different. He goes, and unfortunately, some people started now because we've had, like Toxie was saying, it's so hard to find huntable quail populations. There's some people that's all they've ever exposed to, and they like upland hunting. They're buying a license, they're buying something. Every state has something different you have to buy. So if they all went away, what would it do to the revenue stream or to the people engaged in it? I don't know. It might be a number of people. I don't know. I don't know how many people buy that license. So no, I don't want there to be more of them. But I also recognize that a lot of people, if this was, I don't know when those started. I don't know when I guess about the time of the decline was really apparent. Is that when people started doing it?
Some of this, I think 35, 40 years for some of these people have been in business. Yeah. He brought up the Camerons. I'm going to say they're at least 30 years. Yeah. They were one of the early
There's
ones.
a lot of business gets done like that too. Companies will take 4 or 5.
Oh yeah, corporate retreats, that kind of thing. My brother, he's a corporate guy in Texas, and he was telling me something. They went to some place down in Texas that was kind of a put out place, and they had never done it, and everybody had a good time. So we could argue probably if that's a good thing or a bad thing. So I'm not trying to dance around your question, Bobby. I wish I lived in a world where we didn't need them or have them. I say need's the wrong word.
I agree with you on that. 100%.
But I also know people that are passionate bird dog people who are passionate about the culture, and that's all they've ever experienced. And what I want to do is expose them to wild bird hunting and say, look, change your expectation.
How?
Yeah.
Right. Well, so again, going back to something you said earlier, we have not done. My profession has been very bad at managing expectations across a range of species, but I'm a quail biologist. That's all I'll speak on. We can't tell people that if you do X, Y, and Z management, let's say you got 10,000 acres, you do X, Y, and Z management. I'm not going to tell some 10,000 is a lot. You could probably do it 10,000, but let's say 1,000 acres in Mississippi, and you've got the ability to manage it really well. I've got a property that I work on and have consulted on, and it's a little over 2,500 acres, 3,000 acres. They're trying to manage for quail. They're doing a pretty dang good job. They're moving about a covey per hour on average, and they are ecstatic.
Oh, I would be too.
They are the happiest people you will ever meet. And there was research down at Dialane Plantation in Georgia, which is a WMA that's managed very much, real intensively. And about the same thing, maybe a little higher frequency encounter. But those hunters, they asked them, and they were happy to have a place to put their dog on the ground. Mm-hmm. So it's one of those things where I think if we just say, look, yes, you want to do the work and manage quail, you can have quail, but you're not going to go out and move 10 coveys in a morning. You might move 1 or 2, and you've got to figure out a way to enjoy that for what it is and find ways to incrementally make it better. But the landscape itself is just not going to support across most of the Deep South, what it used to.
Sure.
So
you answered my question. So.
Like you, that's not my cup of tea because I cut my teeth on the other. I have been, and I have enjoyed it, and but it's not something. I mean, I guess it's been 15 or 20 years maybe since I've experienced it or tried to or whatever. My big question is, is there any evidence that all these released birds are doing harm to the wild birds?
There you
genetically, and disease spread like there's evidence for mallards.
Yep. So we were talking about
that's my bigger question because
we brought
even
that up
as
at
big
lunch.
as that is, if we're doing even more harm, that's like to me, if we're doing harm by hunting them, we got to stop at least for or we're not going to have anything. And if we're doing harm with this, we got to stop. And I know that's a can of worms, but we still got to put first things first. That's the reason I get up on my high horse. It's just put first things first, and then I'm fine.
Yeah.
No, it's a really good question. We talked about the mallard thing at lunch a little bit because that's a colleague of mine at Mississippi State's been a part of some of that research, and it's been really fascinating to watch because I never would have guessed that genetic issue was so prevalent.
I wouldn't have either. It was shocking.
That blew my mind. So there's been a bunch of research on this topic with quail, and there's no positive and nothing but risk associated with releasing birds to a wild quail population without question. There was a couple of papers done a while back that definitely showed that when you had both on the same property compared to a comparable property without released birds, you were actually lowering the survival of the wild birds. And we think that's probably not that study concluded it was probably just attracting predators because you've seen pen-raised birds.
Multiple reasons that'd be a big
pen-raised birds aren't that bright, they do things like that. Going to the genetic issue, a colleague of mine did some research for her master's degree looking at in a pen facility, the mating. And I'll tell you this, a bobwhite male will mate with just about any female that comes around. I don't think there's any evidence to suggest they care if it's pen raised or not. So they will absolutely breed with them, 100%. The only maybe saving grace we have there is if it's a pen raised hen, they are terrible mothers. They're not good nesters. They're not good at constructing the nest. They're not really going to dedicate most of the time to the incubation of it. And if they do, and those chicks by chance hatch, they're terrible mothers there too. So we lose a little bit of that. That's some of that. I won't say mitigated. That's the wrong word. But they're not really contributing to the population. But that doesn't mean they're not breeding with them. So the genetic issue is there, where if you have a bunch of them, especially pen-raised males, they're going to breed with a hen, and she's not a wild hen. She don't care. When she's ready to breed, she's ready to breed. Now, the disease issue is a little more complicated. For turkeys too, we just have not done enough research on disease spread, and just within turkeys, not just associated with releases. So if there was a disease, sure, yeah. I mean, they're going to intermingle with them, and there's a risk of spreading. There's increased scrutiny now with avian influenza. There's increased scrutiny now on a lot of those breeding operations. So that's a big issue.
And it's a powder keg with waterfowl so much more because they travel.
They're moving around.
They travel the whole continent,
So, I mean, you're not helping a wild population. And I talk to people all the time that say, hey, I released some and they lasted. Because they'll say, I heard you say on a podcast you can't restore quail with pen raised birds. And I'll say, you can't. And they'll say, no, I've done it. I release them every year. And I said, well, if you're releasing them every year, it's not working. So you'll hear that a lot.
Yeah, but you didn't say, you just said you can't restore wild birds. You're right. You didn't say they won't survive. That's a different thing.
You can't restore wild birds. You can't restore a quail population with pen raised birds. That's
right. Because, I mean, even if one survived, it's a pen raised bird. It's not a wild bird.
Yeah. Well, sure. Yeah.
So what you're they were just.
But just like anything, like hogs, right? So if a bird lives long enough, some species act more wild longer they're in. Quail don't live long enough to get that opportunity. So yeah, but pen raised birds is not the solution to quail restoration.
So real quick, if a wild female breeds with a released male, is that a better chance because she's a wild mom and does her nest better? I'm wondering if the genetics come through where they're weaker or they come through a lot better.
So that's a good question. We don't really know because we haven't followed it to my knowledge. If that's in the research, I've missed it. But I would say it's a pretty good guess. It's not a good thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because you said, the female that
was
released
the reason
was
I say
kind
that,
of a disaster. I thought maybe the wild female had a better chance.
What we're learning with quail is a lot of behaviors are learned. Right. So like you can, like they Tall Timbers did a bunch of research back in the day where they would take wild like eggs from a nest, say it was abandoned or the parent got eaten. They'd go take them, put them in the incubator. And if you hatch them by themselves,
same as turkeys,
they're pretty damn stupid. Right. But if you put them with a wild parent and put them in they had these enclosures that had, natural vegetation, it seems like the parents are what teaches them vigilance. Right. And they're learning how to be vigilant in that system.
Exactly.
And so a lot of stuff just seems to be more learned or through social engagement. But yeah, in general, there's no good reason. The only reason you should ever release a liberated bird is, and I'm not saying it's a justifiable reason, but the only reason you should ever do it is just to shoot them. There's no restoration potential to it.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
The Furminator is the industry's most versatile piece of food plot equipment, allowing plotters to do every step of the process, working the soil, adding seed and soil supplements, and compacting, from start to finish with a single implement. It's hassle-free by design. Set it for the seed size and simply drive the tractor, and the Furminator does the rest. Check it out at thefurminator.com.
Hey guys, Dudley from Gamekeepers here. I want to tell you about the all-new Gunner Dog Bowl. It's designed for home and built for travel. It's customizable, leak-resistant, light on weight, solid on durability, and rust-proof. Like other Gunner products, they're made in Nashville and designed for everywhere.
Nosler's known for their bullets, and now they're making suppressors. Nosler suppressors are made for hunting. Adding a Nosler suppressor to your rifle will make you a quieter, more accurate, and more effective hunter. Protect your hearing and disturb less game with a Nosler suppressor. The time to hunt quiet is now. Learn more at nosler.com.
I'm assuming you collar them or put some kind of transmitter or whatever on them. How far do they travel? Like, you may have a spot that's kind of quaily, but it may be 10 miles before you get to any other there may be 10 miles of timber company land between the two or whatever. So have y'all documented how far they can travel or do they do that?
Yeah, great question. So some of them, yes, and they can travel tremendous distances, more so than most people would think. So quail immigrating out is still one of the biggest questions we have, because you think about the technology we're using, these little VHF antennas, they have a certain limited range. When a bird leaves an area, unless you go looking for him, you're probably not going to find him. And if you do, how far he goes, you might not always have access to that property. I've got some radios on he came out and shot some video on a property right outside of Starkville, and Rob did. And I've had a bunch of them that just spring comes and a bunch of the males go, hey, it's time for me to go find a girl. And they just take off. And it happens in every population. And
humans.
That property's fairly narrow. So it's pretty easy to get off the property. Now they're managing it really intensively. It's tremendously well managed, and there's a lot of quail on it, but it's not hard for them to get to a spot where I don't have access to track them. So that's the reason we don't know as much about how far they go. But for studies that have gone to the work and documented, the average is between 1 mile and 2 miles, but that's the average.
More than I thought.
Oh.
So do they fight at all, the males? Do they have a pecking order like turkeys to a degree? Or is it just like, I'm wondering if, because I mean, the old saying for us, you might have 4 or 6 or 10, whatever, longbeards in a group in the spring, and you can do whatever you want to do. You can have a 20-acre chufa patch, you can feed them or do whatever. They're going to split up.
Yeah.
And they're going to go find a mate. And so the ones that are not at the top of the pecking order, they're out of there. Nothing you can do to keep them. So I didn't know.
Not to that degree, because they're not gregarious. They don't huddle up in groups. The males don't. They're fairly solitary outside of the fall when they're in coveys. I mean, I'm not saying there's not a little pecking order within that, but in terms of breeding, the males they'll go at each other a little bit if there's a female that they're both competing on. But it's nothing like you see with turkeys. But so that's the average. Okay, now. They've documented, I had a buddy of mine in Iowa in the 90s documented a bobwhite, I think went 9 miles in Iowa. Now, how hard do you think that was?
Wow.
Right? We've seen a couple 3-4 mile movements periodically. Wow. So it just, and a lot of that is dependent on the landscape. So what you're saying is if 25% of it's usually the juvenile males, right? Like, hey, it's time to go, right? Think of a teenage boy, got his car keys, and he's ready to make his mark on the world, right? They're going to go. Depending on how hostile that landscape around where they're coming from is a lot to do with whether they live or die. Generally, every step a quail takes is increasing their mortality risk, right? So you think about a lot of the landscapes in Mississippi, even the areas where we've got quail. And I tell people this all the time, and I think I even said it in an article in Gamekeepers that I wrote several years ago. Pick your property on a map and zoom out. And as you zoom out, start adding up how many other, assuming you're managing for quail, how many of your neighbors are doing the same thing? Because once they leave your property, a lot of times that's a death sentence, right? So getting our neighbors, going back to what he was saying, getting our neighbors to help us out. Hey, just light a fire on this 40 if you can, something just to make it that landscape a little bit easier for them to get around to. So,
or I'll burn it for you.
There you go, burn it for you. But yeah, they can go a pretty good distance. I don't know what the record is. I do know multiple miles has been recorded in the literature, but we're probably missing a lot of those birds and how far they go, because we can't keep up with them.
I've got a left field question for you. So I don't obviously know the big difference between a killdeer and a quail, but how are they so much more abundant being ground nesting, similar size? I mean, is there any correlation to why you see a bunch of killdeer but you don't see a bunch of quail?
Is it killdeer or killdeer?
I think it's spelled killdeer.
I grew up saying killdeer, but it's spelled, and I think we're supposed to say killdeer, but it's hard for me because I grew up calling them killdeer.
Me too.
Because they're kind of similar colors. I mean, their legs are a little longer. They're more of a shorebird.
They're more like the snake.
I see them out here in the gravel in the parking lot.
We had a little nest of them, little chicks running out there.
So,
and mom will act injured. And,
yeah, and bobwhite will do that too. Not off the nest generally so much, but with a brood. If you ever come on a pair during this time of year, like we flushed a brood the other day, that hen, if sometimes it's both parents, but if either parent, even if it's just the male or the female, they'll do the broken wing. I've even had a pair charge me when I was trying to get a flush count on some chicks.
I had a hen charge a tractor one time with had poles. She did. She ran right up in the grill of the tractor. I had to hit the brakes.
That's a mama's love.
It was a mama's
So
love.
to answer your question, I'm no expert on killdeer, but I would assume that the vegetation that they require to sustain themselves is not. It's either more general than what a quail needs, or it's much more abundant. So there's no shortage of gravel roads to make a nest on, whereas there's a tremendous shortage often of quality nesting cover for quail. Also, everything in the woods wants to eat a quail, just about.
They live on the ground all the time. Killdeers are flying around all over the place.
At every part of their life. I used to ask students all the time, pick an animal in the woods and I'll tell you if it eats a quail. And sometimes it takes a while to get to one that doesn't. I mean, Tall Timbers I
bet a deer would eat a quail in a heartbeat.
Tall Timbers, she's got a video of a deer. They had a nest on camera on a bunch of nests. They have a video of a deer. I think I mentioned this last time I was on. They had a deer come up and eat the eggs out of the nest.
Oh.
Now, that is not the norm, but it happened because anything will eat a quail egg.
I think I've seen a video of a deer eating a sparrow or something, or a baby chick.
They had a bullfrog eat a radio tagged bobwhite chick. got it, picture made it in the Garden and Gun magazine.
Were you eating mushrooms that day, Dudley?
Possible.
So Mark, tell us,
Microdosing, he wasn't.
He is a big fan of mushrooms. I'm just saying, that wasn't a random comment. He is known to eat every mushroom in the wild.
so let's talk about some of this research you've done. And what I thought was really interesting is you had, we talk about quail. We've mentioned it numerous times, roosting in a circle, facing out. Just how cool is that? And we're told they fly to where they're going to roost. But you've done some thermal stuff, so you can actually see that roost intact. You can see that circle intact. Can you talk to that just a little bit?
Often you can. So that study kind of came out. We just got it published earlier this year. It wasn't maybe the best way to go about answering that question, but we had the opportunity to do it. And I've been trying to figure out how to do thermal stuff for a while. When I was at UGA, the drones with cameras hadn't really gotten real popular, but they had these handheld things, these FLIR cameras, where you could just hold them. And at the time, Tall Timbers was, you could count chicks. You could get up there pre-dawn and flush the brood, and you could record, and it would count the chicks on a thermal image. And it just blew my mind. So I wanted to do that for years. And then when the drones came out, you can put a thermal camera on the drone. I was like, oh man, this got to work. But I'm not all that intelligent of a person when it comes to technology. So I didn't know how to go about it. So by the time we tried it the wrong way 2 or 3 times, by the time we had somebody there that knew how to do it, we had a radioed population, right up here. We were like, hey, we've got the drone. We got a pilot that knows how to do it. And we've got a really fancy camera. Let's just go out and see. The goal was just to see if we could see them. So we had 1 or 2 radios with Olivia, who's I think
Olivia Lappin.
1 or 2 radios on that covey. May have just been 1. So she goes out there and goes, hey, they're right over here, and flew the drone up. And as soon as he got up and turned it on, it was almost immediate. There was just this ring, this glowing heat signature of a ring out in this grass field. And I mean, no joke, I jumped up. I was dancing. I was so excited because I've been wanting to see that for so long. It's hard to see quail roost at night, right? So we get over it, and then it was kind of funny. We were talking about all these different ways to capture them. And they'll hold pretty good, just like a lot of animals will if you hold a spotlight on them. And we had some dip nets, and then we had a cast net. And we weren't going to throw it. We were just going to try to place it. So the guy holding the camera, we got really close, and you can't see where the covey is when you're looking with the spotlight because they're covered in the grass. So we found out you could see the light beam on the thermal camera. You could see me panning it back because he's got it on an iPad right in front of his controls for his drone. And he's like, stop. He's like, and I stopped, and he goes, that's where the bird's on that line, because you could see where the light on the thermal camera crossed the covey signature. So we told the students to walk in, and then as soon as I thought they were over, I said, all right, go down. And of course they went down like a half a second too late. So a bunch of the birds got out, but I think we ended up marking like 4 or 5 birds with radios that night. So we kept doing that, and that was pretty late in the year. So we were catching them. Covey sizes gets a little smaller, and birds are getting eaten, and then coveys will switch. And so by the time we got it done, it was more of just a proof of concept paper. Hey, can you do this? Because it didn't work every time. A lot of times, depending on the vegetation, they busted too early. They would flush. So what we concluded from that was it was really freaking cool. Like it was one of the coolest things I've done, but also it was probably a technology we need to really think about in terms of counting quail, because that technology is just getting way more and more advanced. They're using AI to look through the images. It's all kinds of crazy stuff. But the problem with doing covey, the typical way we count quail in the fall is through covey counts. And I don't know if you ever sat in the morning freezing cold waiting for a covey to call, but in low density populations, they seem to not call as much. And it's infuriating to be sitting out there freezing for 45 minutes. And I can't tell you how many times it's happened where I've gone out there, done a survey, didn't hear a covey call, and then flushed a covey walking out. And it's like, you got to be kidding me. So we were really just trying to find if there's a better way to do it. So I'm not here to say it's the new all end all be all way to count quail, but it was fascinating to see that covey structure. And what happens is, going back to your original question, when that covey size gets really small, you don't see that ring structure. There's just not enough of them to make it, right? They're kind of just all huddled next to each other, and it just looks almost like maybe a rabbit would sit there curled up in the grass. So we're going to redo it and do it earlier in the fall before, but when the population should be at its max, and see if we can get some better. But it was, you could count individual quail from 100 feet off the ground.
Wow.
Wow.
That's amazing.
It is. Dudley, what else you got?
So I'm gonna get a little bit cliche here. We talk specifically about habitat all the time, but just quickly, if one of our listeners has like 40 to 80 acres, I'm just gonna go ahead and say it's cut over.
Okay.
What can they do to specifically target quail to just to be able to hear one from the porch?
Cut over that they don't want to replant, or they do want to replant.
I think you're saying it's up to you to tell them.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, so right now, as y'all are probably aware, our pulpwood pine market's pretty challenging.
I'm so mad at Bob Lolly right now.
It's really challenging. We're hearing people say they're not going to replant because they don't feel like it's a viable economic option. I'm not saying that, but it is becoming more common to see that not happen. So even if you are, but so let's say you're not going to replant it to pine. Let's say it was a pine cut over. I would say the thing to remember is quail need a little bit of grass. They need a lot of annual forbs and some perennial forbs too. And they need some shrub cover. And the more you can intermix those things all together, the better, right? Because every time they take a step, they're going to get more probability of getting eaten. So wherever they can make that work. So the biggest thing to do is if I'm not going to replant that, is I'm going to use fire and maybe herbicide where I need to, take care of exotics, things you don't want, but just light it on fire every couple of years. Or if you got 80 acres, light a third of it on fire this year, a third the next year, a third the next year. What I tell people to do is use your property as your own little personal laboratory. Try new stuff, right? It's hard to get a landowner to try something because they're often, well, I don't know if it's going to work. Well, hell, I don't either. But if it works on your property, I'm going to try it on another property, and I'm going to keep trying it until I understand it. So yeah, fire, like I said, they're called the firebird for a reason. They need that fire. So lighting fires, controlling invasives, and just keeping that mix of plant communities is the simplest thing you can do.
Okay. Do they need a water source?
No, not in the deep south.
Okay.
They're getting most of their water through vegetation and insects
Okay.
from eating them. So yeah, maybe out west, but not in the deep south.
And then, so on the same question, we were out at the place a couple months ago looking at it. And a lot of that cover we saw is what you just described. But there was like a monstrous old tree every 100 yards. Yeah. Do the trees stay or do the trees go?
Oh, man. You'll get me in trouble with some people now. As a quail biologist, I'm not a big fan of any tree. A tree is really a roost for a Cooper's hawk, in my opinion. But there are some trees, especially big old trees, that people want for nostalgic and historical reasons. I'm not by any means advocating get rid of those. I would just say be cognizant of in a open system, like a grassland dominated system like that, those trees probably not providing just a tremendous amount of benefit. Now, if it's a acorn producing tree, quail love to eat acorns, and especially bigger acorns that they can't swallow themselves. They'll eat the cuttings from squirrels. So there's some benefit there. But there's a point where too many big trees can become just essentially raptor perches. Okay. And so, I don't really keep many of them. But I get not a lot of people want to cut down an old tree, so I'm not insensitive to that. So.
Well, yours are mixed up in the middle of a plantation. It's a little bit different.
Yeah.
Than the pasture I had described to me, especially for turkeys by biologists, is that they're exactly what you said. It's just like a killing ground. If you have open pastures with these big pasture trees and those big canopies, but it's open all around them, there'll be a hawk. And if you got a lot of population, like rats too, but especially baby turkeys, quail, whatever, that's not good.
Well, in those isolated trees like that, think about turkeys, you look at some of Chamberlain's work with owls smoking these birds, when you've only got one or two trees to roost in as a turkey, in that area, that you're making some noise.
Yeah, that's interesting. I knew the answer, but I wanted to hear you tell.
Well, like I said, the reason I said I don't want to say too much, I don't want to upset anybody, because I don't want to say, hey, if you got a 150-year-old oak tree that
that your great grandmother
don't go
planted.
cut that down and say that I told you to, but just be cognizant of the fact of if quail is your focus, what it's providing versus what it's not.
Right.
Yeah, it's good. Mac, why don't we do a trivia question?
Trivia time. All right.
Yeah, we got one of our listeners has already won. We're giving away one of these Ryan Kirby Bottomland Bachelor prints. Have you seen that, Mark? It's gorgeous. So there's one right behind you on the wall right there.
that is gorgeous.
That was the Mossy Oak turkey stamp this year, and Ryan graciously gave us a few of those to give away. You can go to ryankirby.com. Is that not right, Mac? And you can check it out there. It's a beautiful print. Mark, I wish we could give you one.
No, it's fine.
Today was today the
My
day
wife
we
won't
were
let me
giving
hang it in the
away
house anyway.
Is today the duck hunt over in the Delta, or is that next week? That's next week, isn't it?
We're giving away a duck hunt?
Yeah, well, that's next week. What do we got from Mark? We've got Mark one of the new gamekeeper hats that are back in stock, guys.
Bobby will sign it for
it's
you.
a mesh back. People have loved these things. They're back in stock, Lanny.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm glad to see y'all not getting into the flat bill business there. Not too bad.
I don't even know what a flat bill is.
Thank goodness. Let's keep it
Max
that way.
pushing
Mark,
Yeah, Dudley likes
Mark likes super curve.
Look, super curve. I'm old school.
Yeah.
Mine too. I mean, my bill of my cap doesn't even get wet because it runs off it so fast from the slope.
Today's trivia is brought to you by Sheffield Financial. Fuel your gamekeeper projects with financing for power sports, outdoor power equipment, and trailers. Begin your next conservation adventure at sheffieldfinancial.com.
So our lucky winner this week is T-Max255
T-Max?
T-Max.
with an X, not a C.
T-Max 255.
Yep, and so just reach out to us. You won the last of the Ryan Kirby Bottomland Bachelor print that we're giving away, but if you want one, you can go to ryankirby.com to get one.
That's right.
So the question mark is, according to the American Kennel Club, where did poodles originate?
Ooh.
See, everyone thinks it's France, but it's actually Germany.
Oh, my goodness. I thought we would get it.
Yeah, you're not going to stump him.
Yeah, that really took a long time for him to respond to.
He thought about that for like a millisecond.
Did anybody else know that?
No.
Heck no.
What's a poodle?
I didn't even know a poodle was a hunting breed.
What's a
Mac,
poodle?
That's what
What's
they're
a poodle?
originally bred
Yeah,
for.
I mean, until I met you, honestly, and my grandmother had poodles my
Wait.
whole life. I'm like, why couldn't I hunt with them?
We've got a part 2 to this question.
Oh,
Now,
crap.
he's
Oh,
not
here
out
we
of the
go.
woods
See, I got all
yet.
arrogant.
Well, he's
there
got to
we go.
win something else because he clearly won the hat.
Bobby's
Give him a
picking
t-shirt,
on you
too.
pretty hard. Something's going on here.
Look at
Let's
that.
go, look at this picture up here. Now, so, Michael, let's go with the second.
I don't believe I showed that one.
All right, so
Off the record, my dog never had that cut on it while we were.
Yeah.
So speaking of that cut, what is the purpose of the poodle's odd haircut with the balls on
See,
the
no, this
fur?
is a trick question because that's what they tell you it's for, and I have fought the poodle people for years to say that this is.
Say that 3 times real quick.
I've gotten in some bad, heated online arguments about this. So the correct answer, so I can win the damn hat, or the correct perceived answer, is to make swimming and protect their joints and make streaming more streamlined. It's all BS, right? There's nothing about that cut that makes it easier for a dog to swim or protects their joints. Okay, hair doesn't protect joints. If you hunt with a poodle and you're serious about it, you keep their hair about a 1/4 inch through winter because that's going to minimize catching up all the seeds and bidens and everything, and that is nonsense. And the poodle people, they pull out this old coin from that shows that cut, and they say, "Oh, the hunting classic clip." That's what it's called. And
Really?
this proves that this is what it's for. I said, no, what it proves is people had dumb haircuts for poodles a long time ago.
So don't be scared to say what you feel about it.
Sorry,
So
y'all.
it was
That's
really
a
called the
trigger.
hunting cut?
The hunting, the HCC, the hunting classic clip.
Wow. Man, look at
learned
that.
something.
Sorry, that is a trigger for me.
Dropping knowledge.
You win the hat, Mark.
Man,
give
look,
him a t-shirt,
when my
too.
wife
I
hears
think
this,
Peter
We might have
Piper
to give him
picked a
2
peck of,
hats.
paper poodles.
Get Mason a hat, too.
if my wife listens to this, which I doubt she will, when she gets to this part, she's gonna be like, "Oh my God, did you really go off on that haircut again?" Because she has seen me battle this
Well,
all
she
over.
would be correct that you went off.
What a perfect
I
question.
feel vindicated because I kind of went off early on there.
I
Who
know.
are these poodle people?
You're gonna get me in a lot of trouble.
It's the
now.
show,
No,
the
that's
show
okay.
people.
That's okay.
Well, so to just since he asked to throw a hat to tip the hat to the show people, the show ring people probably got the poodle away from hunting, but they're also the group that brought them back, right? The show ring people, to their credit, have been the loudest voice on what they call breeding back the standard, making it's a hunting dog. It was always a hunting dog, and to get that back. So that the current group of people that run that, they're doing a great job at that, or they've really tried to make that a hunting dog again. I just disagree with the logic behind the haircut.
Okay.
I agree.
Well, I tell you what, he had has a fantastic poodle retriever.
Lanny,
no
doesn't your
doubt.
mom do the haircut like that on your?
No,
poodle?
not like that.
Okay.
No. We don't have a poodle. She's got a.
So what's the deal with
Labradoodle.
Labradoodle?
She's got a Labradoodle.
Is that a poodle lab cross? Or?
Yeah.
Yes, but the first guy that did that first cross has come out several years ago with a letter saying he wished he'd never done it.
Yeah, I agree with him.
Because there's really
I hope
no.
my mom's not listening to this.
I have a Labradoodle too.
Oh, sorry, Richie.
My wife has
Bunch of people
one.
do.
I've offended everybody. Mark that time.
No, I don't like it.
I agree with you. You should just choose one or the other.
Well, I'll give you an example because he'll never listen to this. My brother has the Labradoodles are out. No one's doing that anymore. Now it's the Golden Doodle.
Oh, excuse me.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
what my mom has.
And
is a
get
golden
this.
That
doodle.
sounds like something you take
You
medicine
too?
for or
Yeah.
something. That's-
Oh, Richie's got a golden doodle.
So what happened is they bred the poodle to the golden retriever, and which really makes no sense because both breeds have very similar temperaments. You know, when you're crossing dogs, you're trying to create something unique, right? They're both really calm, really great dogs, right? So they bred them, and then they still shed. So now what they do is they take the offspring of a golden doodle and they breed it back to a poodle. So
Sounds like what Dudley does with trees.
So it's about a 75%. I know that's probably not the way to say it, poodle, and a 25% golden retriever if you do the math like that. And they've got a bunch of different names for them. My brother's got one, and I said, and it looks just like a poodle. I said, why not just buy a poodle? And I said, what are you trying to, like, he goes, I can't walk around with a poodle. But you can walk around with a golden doodle.
Yeah.
Somehow,
he's not as secure in his manhood
I
as
guess
you are.
I guess not. I hope he does listen to this. Wonderful dog. I mean, I know people that hunt with them. They're good dogs.
I'd say this: my dog, when he was around her,
He was in
it's the
love.
only time I ever seen him suck his gut in.
he was a Copper was in love. He was.
She was a specimen in her prime.
She was.
I mean, all the,
She was a
all the-
machine.
All the
from what I
flirtatious,
remember.
beautiful dogs in a movie and cartoons are a poodle.
Yeah, that's right.
Or
They
some
really
type
are.
of poodle.
Yeah. What should we be at? Let's forget about poodle.
Wait, Richie had something over there.
I'll throw something out here real quick. So Mark, can you talk to us a little bit about your another study going on where your guys are tracking coveys with transmitters? I'm sorry, not. Let me back up. You already talked about that one. Sorry.
Mark that
Mark that down. I was like,
Mark that
didn't
down,
we
go,
talk about
Richie.
that for like 20
Yeah,
minutes?
Richie, that's the one out at.
That's when I filmed. Yeah.
Yeah, you came to film some of that.
Not
Yeah,
Rob-
you might
not
want to
Rob.
stick to VO,
Not
Rich.
Rob. Rob didn't film that one. But
Oh yeah, I said the wrong name. That's my bad.
so let's talk about the foraging study you have with the chicks.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
yeah, that was a lot of fun. So, like one of the things we don't know a lot about with quail, don't know enough about, I would say, is brood ecology, brood survival. Right? We've had kind of shoddy data over the years trying to understand, and broods are really important, but they're so small they're hard to study. As the technology's gotten better, you can put transmitters on them, you can do all these different things.
On a one-day-old chick?
Not quite one day, but yeah, I think a couple of days old.
Yeah, I
you can
would
get it to
think
them.
learning
Yeah.
the first couple of weeks forage, there they go on film right there. Wow. Would be so critical to know. And if there's if there's an absence of what they have to have, is it bugs right off the bat?
Well, it's mostly bugs. Yeah, we found some interesting stuff on seeds that we're not quite sure how to interpret yet. But yeah, mostly bugs. They need the sulfur, they need the amino acids to build up feathers and all that kind of stuff. So what we were trying to do was, I didn't have any money research wise to tag any chicks because it takes a fair amount. But imprinting, you can just buy eggs and imprint them, and when you imprint them, they'll come to you. As you can see, I guess that's the video you are playing. So I had a student do that up at a property in Como, and we had a bunch of different treatments on ways to get rid of sericea. And then we did all the vegetation treatments, and then we let the vegetation respond, combinations of herbicide and fire and timing. And then we let the chicks forage for 30 minutes, called them back, euthanize them, cut them open. And if you get them within 30 minutes, nothing should have gone too far down. So the bugs hopefully are still intact. They haven't made it down through the digestive tract. And then you sort that out and you kind of see what they're eating. So we did that study to help us learn which best way to control sericea was most cost effective, had the best vegetation response, and then the chicks told us hopefully who did the best, who got the most biomass per 30 minutes, right? We're doing another one. We're doing a couple. So we've got a couple of spots. We're looking at different rank native grass where we've got too much native grass, where we've gotten rid of some of that, where we haven't, where we've done different different vegetation manipulations, and we're just taking the chicks out and letting them forage. And then we had some pollinator plots out there, some equip plantings that were super diverse, like 38 different species of pollinator friendly plants. Let them forage out there, and essentially we're just getting the data back, looking at the biomass of the insects, the diversity of insects, and kind of helping us learn what makes good brood food. But what's interesting, going back to the food's one thing, how much they can get. The other part is how easily they can navigate through it, right? And what we found is a rank native grass stand, they can barely get through. A Sericea stand, Sericea is thick, can't get through. But where we've done different timings of burns and different vegetation manipulations, we had birds that were 40, 50 yards away that they were able to move that through. We put 10 of them down at a time. They're all imprinted and let them forage. And then about 28, 29, 27 minutes in, you call them back. And as you can see in that video, for the most part, they come back really, really, really well. So it's just a really cool way. It's been fabulous for me because I have learned so much about what these chicks are experiencing on the ground. So the ones we're doing this summer, they're in the incubator now. And then my friend James Calicut, our extension guy, game bird extension guy at Mississippi State, he's going to get some fancy cameras that you can put down in the vegetation, and we're going to follow some of them and just try to get a quail's eye view of what they're dealing with. Because when I'm training quail biologists, like I've been doing these last 2 days, we lay them down on the ground. Put your head on the ground and look at the world through a quail's perspective. That top eye is about where an adult bird's going to go if your head's flat. That bottom eye is about where a chick's at. Right?
Makes a lot of sense.
And it's a different world. Than biologists, we're looking down at vegetation. Right. We're rarely looking through it. So the chicks they've taught me a tremendous amount, and we're going to keep doing it and keep expanding it. I want to get into like the cover crop world because there's a lot of interest in cover crops for wildlife right now, but we don't really know if they're good for quail. So we want to see if that affects foraging in a bean field. Bean fields used to be considered really good brood cover.
Yeah, we were talking about that in the last episode.
But they're
good
not
food, but it's not good cover.
Well, they used to have a lot of insects in it because there used to be a little more weeds in there, and there wasn't so much pesticide application.
Right.
That's changed the invertebrate community. Yeah, so we want to just play around with some of that. So yeah, it's been a blast. My students have done all the grunt work. I just get to sit there with the camera. But you gotta spend some time with them when they hatch. That first day, I mean, you've got to really attach to them.
Remember the Quail Haven soybean?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Is it still in existence?
I think you still can buy it.
I think I've seen it out there.
Yeah.
So another thing, Bobby, just occurred to me, if we might head down the road in future years of helping. It's not that hard to grow traditional soybeans. Everybody got so stuck on Roundup Ready and all the things associated with it, but it's not that hard. The formulas and actually the herbicides are much safer than just glyphosate.
It could be.
So yeah, we know for a fact too that those foragers are even more nutritional too. That's something to think about when people are, soybeans are a great source of food for quail.
Sure, I'll eat them.
But a 100-acre field that's clean as a whistle with all this other stuff too, that's a different story.
That's a big different story. That agriculture, the monoculture agriculture across the landscape, just seas and seas of acres of the same thing with very little diversity. Yeah, I mean it's definitely a downside. It's a bad thing for quail.
Yep.
Yeah. Is there anything we need to be asking you? We had anything you need to that you thought driving over here? Boy, they'll probably ask me about this.
I've got but I want to be sure that he lists a reference for people because I know we chase our tail so much like we do here today, and he provided a lot of information. But if people are really serious about this, they need to be able to go back to again and again and again a resource. And I know you got stuff published. I want to be sure you mention that to people, what to go to read, a website, and other stuff.
Well, sure. Nobody, hopefully, listening to this podcast wants to read a scientific paper. It's hard enough to get.
Well, you can at least read the
abstract.
Well, I mean, you could go pick up pieces and parts of it
sure.
if you need it.
So what we've done at Mississippi State over the years is we've tried to consolidate research findings, not just from our research, but from around the range on bobwhites into extension documents, right? So we've got a pamphlet on bobwhite that's I'd say it's pretty good. I mean, it's very robust. We're in the process of updating it because it was done I think in 2008 or 2009. So there, there's been some new research, but nothing in it's wrong. It's just we refined some things in there. So in any of those, if you just type in Northern Bobwhite MS Mississippi State Extension, that document comes up really good. Missouri's got a tremendous one called On the Edge, which is one of the best ones I've ever seen. They did a tremendous, I think MDC and their extension office did it there.
Right.
We're about to have, like I said, we've got a game bird extension guy now, so he's working on a bunch of different documents. Quail Forever's got a bunch of good stuff on there. I wrote an article for y'all on their website. I wrote an article on quail for y'all's magazine a few years back that I still hand out to people. I just printed out a bunch of them. So there's a ton of good resources out there.
Yeah, UGA, Clemson.
Yeah, UGA. Yeah, James Martin's work at UGA. I mean, he's doing more quail research than just anybody in the country, and he's in multiple states doing all kinds of cool stuff. Clemson's quail initiatives is really gotten a lot of good press in the last several years. Arkansas, Quail Forever in Arkansas is blowing up, man. They're putting habitat on the ground like crazy. They've got these crews that go around and light fires for landowners, and it's fascinating.
Speaking of Sericea, I went to the Ouachita National Forest, taking my kid to camp, and they need to tighten up. There's Sericea lespedeza all over the sides of every road through that national forest.
Well, I don't know if we can talk much about that in Mississippi.
Oh, we can't.
We all need to tighten up on Sericea.
Yeah,
it's there's a lot of exotics I've come to peace with. Like, all right, it's just here.
Kogon grass.
That is Sericea is one that I think I hate more than anything.
That was the one I chose to first try to eradicate on my new little place.
Well, the good thing is it's not hard to kill Sericea. It's hard to keep Sericea back once you kill it.
Yeah.
And what we found, just real quick, just if people are curious, dormant season fires, which we were talking about at lunch, right? Mm-hmm. From a quail standpoint, we need to really diversify our fire timing. Dormant season fires actually increase the amount of Sericea in our plots.
Because it scarifies the seed.
That's right.
Yeah,
Ooh.
I think so. Yep.
Duly noted.
Mac, I'd love for you to.
I bet it doesn't like 2,4-D though.
It doesn't like any. Most of the chemicals kill it really, really well. Yeah.
Mac, we've got a little thing. I would love for guys to just pay attention to this. It's called whistleback. It's a blend, a bunch of different seeds. Matt, could you tell us about that real quick?
Yeah, so it's a 10-pound bag of seed, covers about a quarter of an acre, but we suggest, planting it in strips as an edge cover.
Food plot edge is awesome.
Yep, 3 different millets in it, a little bit of wheat, some sorghum, some sunflowers. So, I mean, it's perfect for your turkeys, upland birds, and it's on sale right now. So.
Yeah.
What kind of sunflowers y'all have in it?
It's great for doves too.
Yeah. What kind of sunflowers y'all have in it, man?
Paradovic.
Yeah, so we're not saying we'll bring back the wild quail, but the little message in this is if you've got some wild birds on your place, let's try to help them.
Yep.
And so that's all we're trying to do.
It looks great on the edge of a food plot.
It'd
too.
be
It's
cool.
Great transitional zone.
Yeah, have
Eco
like
tone.
some natural,
Ecotone.
have some natural edge.
Yeah.
Then have your whistleback.
Yep.
Then maybe you start your little deer plot,
food plot
next to it.
I like it.
Well, Mark, you're a lot of fun.
Yeah, you are.
Well, and you're very passionate about this. I really appreciate your sitting there and talking to us straightforward.
Yeah, he's a good infighter. He counterpunches well.
Yeah, that was fun. It got a little intense.
A lot of fun.
This was a good one.
There's nothing I love more than spirited debate, and I think it's one of those things that in the wildlife profession we got to do more of.
Yes.
As long as I think here's a good example. There may be some disagreement, but I didn't call Toxie a name. I don't think he called me one.
I wouldn't point it at you.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
just
right.
frustrated with it's all back to we have the one common thing. It's always at the forefront, the love of the bird.
Yeah, you can't progress in science unless you disagree on
Can't be scared to be challenged.
Yeah.
Without disagreement, there is no discovery.
Mm-hmm.
There you go.
That's what I tell my students.
Dr. Mark McConnell, we've just enjoyed having you so much. You're the Upland Bird Specialist at Mississippi State. Is that your title?
I think my official title is Assistant Professor of Upland Birds, but whatever people want to call me.
He's the quail guy.
Yeah, the quail guy.
Quail dude.
Quail dude at State.
The quail dude.
Yeah.
We're doing a little turkey research, a little quail research, a little grassland bird research. I do trying to get some woodcock research going. If
that's a cool bird.
If it's a bird, you can put a dog on. I'd be curious.
Need a February season.
I thought we had one
on woodcock.
Yeah,
it should. I think it ends at the end of January.
Hey, real quick off the subject, do we have a huntable population of woodcock?
I would say so. Yeah.
Okay.
We're getting a lot of migratory birds too. We have some residents, but they just published a crazy paper. Look, this blew my mind. They just published a paper as a PhD student out of, I think, University of Rhode Island, showed that woodcock that they tagged with GPS collars were making multiple nesting attempts as they migrated north.
Crazy.
Now, the face you're making, Dudley, is the face you should be making.
Okay, yeah, it was of confusion.
That blew my mind.
For those on the podcast, that face was like, duh.
It was just.
He was dumbfounded by that.
I was too. I saw the paper and I walked into a faculty meeting trying to read it and didn't pay attention to the faculty meeting at all because which never a bad idea.
That's crazy.
Because I was just enamored with the fact that this is happening. And multiple times, not 800 kilometers in between. Like, they're obviously migrating. Oh, let me try a nest again. Just blew my mind.
Could we teach ducks and other stuff that same thing? Wow. A for effort.
Rob Kenny and I went duck hunting with some friends near Stuttgart last winter, right as that crazy cold blast you referenced.
You were in the right spot.
January 20-something. And on the way home, the front had already, barely come through. It was just freezing. We would pull over and see 200 woodcock in somebody's front yard, probing around right before the ground froze. And
Absolutely.
it was crazy. And then we saw some when we got close to West Point out in people's yards. You would see a woodcock every 5 or 6 feet, and there would just be hundreds of them.
Next time that happens, just give me a call.
Yeah, for real.
So we've had that happen. Properties, not this last freeze, but the one, the one that was like 7 days long a few years back, in the last 5 years, maybe, that we all were locked in. I was getting calls from people saying, "Hey, there's woodcock in the ditch, right off this gravel road." I'm like, "Are you sure you're not just seeing?" And they're saying a bunch of them, because when you hear about a bunch of them, you don't think of woodcock. You rarely see them down here in a big group. But I was like, all right, you're probably seeing snipe, right? Because a lot of people, snipe looks similar to a woodcock. Yeah. And you often see flocks of snipe do that. I'm like, you're probably seeing snipe. And they're like, they say, send me a picture. It's a show enough woodcock and a bunch of them. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, my goodness. So what I've understood, because I called David Krimitz, who's the last guy that did any real research on woodcock in the Deep South. I just called him a couple years ago because I was so confused. I'd hit him one day, then not hit him the next day. And I was just like, I can't understand this bird. And when the ground freezes or is about to freeze, when that they're coming under a front, they're going to go to anything. But yeah, they're on the ditches. We saw the freeze a few years ago. It was because that was the first thing thawing out, and they were just getting as many worms as they can, just probing it like crazy is all we can guess. But yeah, those fronts just push them so hard. It's a really cool bird.
That's fascinating.
So you're hunting those with
it was
dogs
cool,
too?
really cool to witness.
Hunting with dogs.
Yeah, that's the thing I'm talking about. You talking
flush?
you're talking earlier about how quail holds so good compared to like a ringneck or a pheasant or something that runs. Woodcock hold tremendously well.
They do pretty good, but it's usually
snipes too.
It was just one, almost always just one here,
Yep.
one there.
Yep.
Whenever I ran into them,
I was hunting in Wisconsin 2 years ago, woodcock, and one spot we got into one. And then when my dog got off that one, bumped another one. There are 3, but in an area the size of this room, rarely do you see them congregated like that.
Yeah, they would hold some, but they flushed them. Maybe they don't smell as strong, but I remember if you had a close working dog, if you were on your toes, you could shoot the flushed one. You know, when they got up to.
Doesn't the snipe like wetter areas, or the woodcock like wetter areas?
So you're going to find woodcock. They're called a shore bird, but they don't really use anything shory like a snipe does. They're in the woods and the thick, but in damp kind of areas, snipe are going to be out in your open mud flats and that kind of stuff.
When you drain the duck ponds, right when you let the water off, their snipe will be everywhere.
I know guys that do that specifically to hunt them because you can hunt them, sometimes
Buddy,
ducks.
I think you can hunt them in February in a lot of states.
The sniper on the Winchester All-American team too, buddy, because you'll burn some shells up trying to get one of those there so fast.
Tastes really good.
Yeah,
not as good as a dove, but pretty close.
Mm-hmm. I mean, honestly, I was shocked. I thought they wouldn't taste good, but they're delicious.
What about a woodcock? How's he taste?
Oh, I don't think they taste very good, but my buddies that I hunt with tell me that I just
kind of earthy.
It's white meat, isn't it?
No.
Oh, really?
It's as livery as you can eat. Now I love liver. I love
Woodcock?
chicken liver. Yeah, they're breast meat.
I've heard you have to go even rarer than you do with duck and stuff.
We were up in Wisconsin hunting this past fall, a bunch of us, and we got home that afternoon, breasted them out, did the whole wrap bacon thing, fresh out of the bird, wrapped up, grilled, super rare. Mm-hmm. They were fine. Mm-hmm. When I say fine, a lot of
tolerable.
a lot of
it's
duck.
Like when your wife says fine.
Yeah. I didn't say that, but a lot of ducks. Duck's okay. Duck's okay. I mean, you can make duck pretty good, but duck's not venison, right? Let's not kid ourselves. I don't care what you do to it. I love duck. I eat a lot of duck,
Yeah.
but it's not venison, right? Venison's the true game meat. You can say, hey, no, that's as good as everyone says.
Yeah.
Woodcock are, when they're that fresh, are just a little bit below a duck.
Yeah. You like duck meat, Bobby?
I'm not going there with you, Lanny. I can see you coming a mile away. Goodness gracious. Mark, this has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, thank y'all. Appreciate the chance.
Yeah.
Happy to do it.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
we
Great.
Stay-
Great conversation.
Yes.
Yeah, it is.
We want to stay with you on this research you're doing. Keep following you. We'll send Richie and Rob when we can out there.
It's my bad. I just seen Rob earlier when I was coming in. That's what I was thinking.
Rob gets all the glory, doesn't he?
He does.
You know, I'll say one thing that he's consistent with all friends we have across all
Yes.
eight of biology is like, drop the torch, drop the torch,
Yeah.
drop the torch.
Burn the landscape.
Everybody agrees on that part.
Yeah, they do.
And I was just listening to one more thing, Bobby. Sorry. I was just listening to John Grucci. I think y'all have had on before.
Yeah, we love John.
We were at this training together, and there's a lot of debate about timing a fire for quail or turkeys. And he's like, "Look, just light the fire.
Yeah.
Just burn. We'll figure out the timing later. Just light the
keep
fire."
burning.
Marcus said it. We ought to put that on a T-shirt. Marcus said it best. It's like he gets asked because he's Dr. Disturbance and all that.
Fire University.
Yeah. He said, tell us when the best time to burn is. Yeah, every time, anytime you can.
Yeah.
Whenever you can.
Well, get ready. We're going to light the place up August 15th.
I'm liking the new name.
At the place?
Yeah,
The place.
The place.
The north end of the place.
That's a good time to do it.
All right, guys. Well, look, it's about that time in the deep south. Fawns are starting to drop, so or
Yeah.
going to be dropping. So y'all be careful out there if you're doing.
I
any
got
kind
a picture
tractor
of
work.
a very, very pregnant doe this morning.
Yeah, they are getting big.
I will say 1st of July is when I normally will, and they probably start before that, but I can remember always,
be
and that's
careful.
a couple of days from now.
And then our listeners up in like Kevin Van Dam, he's been sending me pictures.
Oh,
of
yeah.
He's had fawns for quite a while now.
Yeah, I was just
It's
up
still-
in Virginia, saw a bunch of them.
Yeah. Still too early to bush hog, so keep that in
Mac,
mind.
you got anything else? You good? All right.
Thumbs
well, look,
up
we've
from Mac.
enjoyed this. Dr. Mark McConnell.
There you go.
We have
job,
thoroughly
Bobby.
enjoyed
Nailed
it.
this thing,
Yeah.
wasn't it?
Look at you.
Oh, man. Why don't you say goodbye, Dudley?
Goodbye, Dudley.
Get us out of here, Richie.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of the Gamekeeper Podcast. And be sure to tune in again. Subscribe to Gamekeeper Farming for Wildlife magazine and don't miss the Mossy Oak Properties Fistful of Dirt podcast with my good buddy, Ronnie Cuz Strickland.